creepy lady. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Total Bases Podcast Express Show. I am your host, Austin Spiro. Thank you so much for joining in on yet another episode of the podcast, live every Thursday. Thank you for tuning in with us, especially if you're live here on Facebook. We got a couple people I saw we're watching on Facebook right now. Thank you for watching us because it's the NFL season opener. The Bills and Rams are playing right now. So, last time I saw the Bills were winning 10-0 in the second quarter. I got a guest with me. Well, really not a guest. It's one of the hosts of the full show of the Total Bases podcast. Felipe is here with me. Felipe, how you doing?
It's me, Felipe. Hi, how you doing? Thank you for having me. This actually is a makeup. You know how they have makeup games in baseball, Major League Baseball. There's a makeup game to Sunday morning where I felt ill. I feel better today, though, so that's a good sign that maybe whatever it was something fluky. But I feel great right now, health-wise, and I'm ready to talk some baseball with you right now.
That's great. All right, so we can get started with that. Oh, you went to the All Elite Wrestling, didn't you?
Oh, hell yeah, I did. Oh, it was such a blast.
Was it?
I loved every second of it. It was very memorable. I went to it last year. I think last year was a little bit better just because of all the surprises that they were able to pull off.
Yeah.
But this past event was pretty damn good in itself. And it's right here in my own backyard, not too far from my house. Very convenient. I hope they have it. I hope it becomes a Labor Day staple here in the suburbs and the Chicago suburbs here. But as All Elite Wrestling gets bigger, I'm pretty sure they're going to be looking at maybe getting into other venues like the United Center or even the Allstate Arena, depending on how the WWE, because everything depends on the WWE, right? The World Wrestling Entertainment, due to their exclusive contracts that they have with these major arenas across the country. But AEW is making their dent little by little, and I strongly urge you guys check it out. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of drama. I feel like in a lot of the wrestling groups on Facebook, there's more talk about AEW than there is about the WWE. Yeah. And I even got my wife in it. It's like my wife likes a couple of wrestlers in AEW. Now she's like, it's become something of a curiosity for her.
Right.
So that's exciting.
Well. I have not watched any sort of wrestling like that. I was a wrestler in high school, but I didn't watch any sort of wrestling like that. I watched it when I was a kid. So I watched it when it was The Undertaker, Stone Cold, the end of Stone Cold Steve Austin,
right.
Goldberg. I had a Goldberg shirt. So, that was the era of wrestling that I watched. I think the only wrestlers that I know at this point are CM Punk and Ronda Rousey. I think that's about it.
Yeah, and CM Punk has been causing a lot of controversy lately.
I saw an article. Yeah.
Just one article. Lucky you. I've seen all the updates and they'll drive you crazy. But you know what? I keep telling everybody, it's just a work. Calm down. He'll be back. He's not getting fired. He's not getting suspended. And if he does, you never know. Everything is always a work in progress in wrestling until it's not anymore. So
right.
Yeah. It's just a transition point to the next storyline, basically, is what I'm trying to say here.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a big storyline going on in the AEW. There's a lot of drama going on in the AEW, but we also had a lot of drama at the conclusion of our Total Bases Champions League season. And that's pretty much what this podcast is going to be about. This episode, we're going to talk about the playoffs for the Champions League. We decided that as co-commissioners that every team was going to make it. We were going to just be participation trophies and everybody was going to make the playoffs this year. And so it was actually really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained over there?
It was thoroughly entertaining. We had big favorites go down. We had big Cinderellas. We had a lot of games really close coming down to the last game. And it was a hard fought 4 weeks of playoff baseball. And it ended up, your two commissioners ended up in the playoff championship final there. Felipe and myself were both there. And I'm going to share my screen and show you the result of that. After a week in our category league, it turned out that for whatever reason, I could beat Felipe in the regular season, but when it comes playoff time, I always come up short, never fails. Felipe at this time, it went back and forth. I was ahead of him 10-4. going into like Wednesday, and then come Friday, Felipe was up like 12 something at 12-3 at one point. And on Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, I had gotten it back down to, as you can see here, it was 8-6. It came down to the last game. At that point it was Dodgers and Padres. I had to get an RBI and a run from either Machado or Freeman. And Felipe also had Ha-Seong Kim and Trey Turner going for him. And it came down to that game, and I just came up a little short. And so congratulations to Felipe for being the first total base champion. I'm going to give the soapbox to you, Felipe. Go ahead and have your victory speech.
I mean, what more can I say? It's fitting that I'm the one who won. It's my podcast. It's my league. Of course I'm going to win. All these people, they want to, oh yeah, well, let us join a league with you. Let us join a league with you. Yeah, please. Next time there's an opening, let us in. We want to join it. And then when they join it, they almost it gets ugly, right? Because they realize that I take this pretty damn seriously, more serious than they anticipated, and then it becomes a whole thing. But it's a very fun league. Congratulations to everybody who participated. The playoffs were fun. I know that not everybody liked the idea of all 12 teams making the playoffs, but it ended up being an entire month of just playoff baseball, even though it's of the fantasy variety. It ended up being a real good time just watching everybody trying to set their lineups the proper way and trying to get these upset wins and prove a point. It really was a second chance of redemption. The first 4 teams got the bye week. So for everybody, all the other 8 remaining teams, there was a buzz in the air that, all right, well, I'll show you. This is my time to kind of make up for lost time, for lost failings or whatever. And a lot of those guys, a lot of those league owners, they took advantage of it. There was a lot of upsets, as you mentioned, as it was prone to be. I mean, when all the teams make the playoffs and you're boiling it down to 1 week periods at this point.
Yeah,
a lot of upsets were expected. Not this many though. I mean, we start with I
could go to the playoff bracket.
Yeah, and I'm on it right now, but I guess the big upset was Angel's team beating Melvin's team. Angel was a number 11 seed, and Melvin was a number 6 seed. Who else? And then so that was a big upset in the first round. Everybody else went chalk, but in the second round, that's when things got interesting because Corey, as you could see, the 7-8 game in the second round. Where is it? Go up a little bit. That one right there. Corey almost defeated the number 1 team in the league, Carlos. And that ended up going down to the distance and in a tie where the home team gets the tiebreaker. So Carlos was able to advance on that technicality. In the second game, number 5 seed Austin defeated number 4 seed Larry.
In the last game, mind you, literally it came down to the last. I was mad because I was like, Larry's going to beat me. I'm so mad. Like, Larry shouldn't be beating me. I should be beating him. And it came down to probably the last 2 at-bats. Tommy Edman and somebody else came in and pinch it. Oh, Keibert Ruiz came in and pinch hit. They both got on, raised my OBP. One of them got a run, ended up turning that tie into a win for me in that category. And it was the difference. I ended up winning 8-7-1. And that was really satisfying to me because Larry started prematurely making that victory circle, that victory lap, and then he ended up losing, so he had to eat crow. That was wonderful. Yeah, and then down here you have Angel really upsetting. I mean, he was the number 11 team. He had the second worst record in the league, beating Ricky, who we said from halfway through the season was going to be a really good, solid team. And I mean, Angel proved that his team was better than his record showed. And then you down here with according to the seeding, you had the upset going against AJ there, who was the division winner.
And then, of course, I went 3-0 against AJ, who the auto draft team, who had a double-digit wins in this league. There were only 16 games, just like the old school NFL seasons from before the year before that one. When they expanded to 17 games now. They're at 17 games. The NFL is. Well, we did the uniform 16 game season this year, so we can have 4 weeks of playoffs. And auto drafts here, AJ, was one of the better teams in the league. And I'm proud of the fact that I was, and he won the division, by the way. He won our division. I'm proud to say that I did go 3-0 against him. I don't care that his team was auto-picked or not. It's still a major accomplishment because you don't win 11 games by accident in this league. He always had the very good pitching. Hell, he's the reason why everybody's draft went into chaos because of his auto draft team selecting all the pitchers. So that really burned a lot of us. But I'm glad I was able to defeat him. So there you go, proving once again that if you want to win this Champions League, you got to show up for the draft. And Melvin's on the chat saying his moniker Suplex City, which now every time I see him, due to his crappy appearance in the playoffs, all I see is Souffle City. Just the air.
Why do I feel like that Baseball Cosmos will not be his team name next season? It will be Suplex City.
Oh, he has to come back with Baseball Cosmos. He has a podcast coming up soon, and he has that the baseball page he needs to promote. So what better way to do it? So Baseball Cosmos was upset in the first round of these playoffs. That's all you need to know about Baseball Cosmos. But he'll redeem himself in the Caribbean League Series, and then the WBC that's coming up next winter. Coming up. I can't wait for that, man. Can't wait for that. I'm withdrawal symptoms. You know what would be better right now? Fantasy WBC. No, I'm joking. I'm not really joking, but and then the third round, Austin defeats the number one team in the league, Carlos, 11-4, in a very outstanding performance by your team there. Austin, what was the difference making?
The difference in this one, I think, was my offense really showed up, and I had just the right amount of pitching. I mean, I led in strikeouts for the whole league. My pitching staff led in strikeouts. I ended up getting a ton of quality starts. And for whatever reason, I don't know where I got it from, but I ended up getting 2 saves. And then they weren't just, my pitchers just were not letting anybody on base. I had a feeling that I was going to do pretty well offensively. It was my pitching that was going to be kind of my downfall, which is what ended up being my downfall in the championship game. But I had enough good pitching in this one to take down pretty much the best team in the league. I mean, Carlos went 14-2. He was a late addition to the league, pretty much last minute. I think it was like 2 days before the draft we added him. We had a last minute cancellation, last minute guy backed out, and we asked Carlos, and Carlos was gracious enough to accept our invitation, and he didn't disappoint. He did really well, drafted really well, and he stuck with most of the players that he drafted. He did not he was not on the waiver wire very often. So that was another thing that was really impressive. You had 2 extremes. You had Carlos with not being on the waiver wire a whole lot, and then you had people like Angel, and you had people like Melvin, who they were all over the waiver wire all the time. So it was really interesting to see the different strategies and what was going to work and what wasn't. And usually there's got to be some sort of activity on the waiver wire for each team, and Carlos, I don't think, touched the waiver wire until like 4 weeks left in the regular season. And
the injuries finally caught up to him, I bet.
Yeah. So it was a really interesting phenomenon. There was a lot of interesting strategies that ended up working. We'll talk about that when we get to the roto ranking.
It's actually Corey got the least amount of waiver wire moves. Remember, Carlos had 9 midway through the season when we did those reviews. Yeah. He ends up with 21, and then he's Puerto Rican, so 21. Roberto Clemente. It's a perfect number that you can get if you're Carlos. But our guy Corey only had 9 moves all season long, which is really weird to me. But yeah, when you have Mike Trout and Mookie Betts on your team, you really don't have to do much. Yeah. But I don't know. If he just does a little bit more, maybe Corey can get over that hill. But he's learning. He's learning.
Corey performed well for not using any spreadsheets and using the good old eye test. He did very well. And it being his first year, I was impressed.
Maybe if he gets the spreadsheets, he might get over that hump, right? So, I mean, Angel was able to.
Yeah, Angel got over that hump, and I mean, when you look at Angel's record, Angel was 4-12. He was the second worst record in the league. But I wrote it in the post that I had thanking all of the members that joined this league. He just had the worst luck that I had ever seen a fantasy team endure. I mean, just close match after close match after close match. He'd always lose it. It was always by some dumb thing that happened. And he never, like, it just never worked in his favor until the playoffs, which was the right time for it to work out. And he ended up coming in what, fourth? So
yeah, he lost to me in the
Yeah.
in the semifinal.
So, I mean, it's was an impressive run right there at the end. He got hot at the right time, and it pretty much showed that his team was better than what his record showed. So yeah,
But-
and then obviously in the finals, we already talked about it. We have you winning, you beating me in the finals.
Yeah, and speaking of Angel's in the chat, Melvin's in the chat. They're saying hi to each other, and you know, they're at the kitty table. Well, the champions are talking here. Really quick. The average waiver wire move in this league was 32 transactions, ad drops, I guess I should call them. 32 ad drops was the average. Only 4 teams went above that average. Corey Richmond, Matt Nyland, Melvin, and yourself, and myself, sorry, not you, but me, the champion, with 81 big moves, mostly for my pitching.
How many did I have?
You had 23.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's weird how that worked out, but I know I needed a lot of pitching because I waited to the very end, nearly at the very last minute. I ended up getting a starting pitcher. My ace was Framber Valdez, and so you can only imagine how bad everything else was.
Right.
But yeah, I just kept working at it, and it was the pitching that got me over the hump there.
Yeah.
Who said I didn't have any pitching? Logan Gilbert pitched a dandy of a game. Thank you, Austin, for that trade.
You're welcome.
What was the other guy? Spencer Strider showed up at the end. Dustin May is just sitting there on waivers. No one else wants Dustin May, even though there's no restrictions with who can get an ad drop. Because everybody is scheduled to play games. So if you need to improve your team, go and improve your team. I don't discourage anyone from doing that, but there was a lot of good pitchers that were just available at the very end. Jeffrey Springs is another name that kind of saved my season and my pitching staff. And the other one was Nick Lodolo, who I just picked up just specifically for our matchup together, Austin.
Yeah.
I picked up Nick Lodolo and Brian Bello because I wanted to make sure that I had the same amount of starts that you had. You had 7 going into our game. So I was scrambling looking for guys that can get me to 7 starts for that final week.
That on top of my pitching just getting crapped on. I mean, that week my pitching got crapped on. I think the first 3 or 4 days, I think my pitching had a 6 ERA, something like that. It was ridiculous. I was getting rocked on both my points league and in this league. I was just like,
by Felipe, by the way, Felipe in both leagues.
Yeah, I was like, you got to be kidding me right now. Both leagues, my pitching was getting crapped on, and I was like, could it get any worse? Like, all I wanted to do was win.
No, I am there as a roadblock to your dreams there, Austin. I am not gonna just let you have it just because.
Yeah.
No, the apprentice has to learn before he can be the master. That's all I'm saying.
Anyway, so, moving into, we talked a lot about teams being better than what the record showed and things like that. So we decided about a quarter of the way through the season that we were going to. ESPN does not do roto standings. So we decided that behind the scenes we were going to do these roto standings going on. And I pretty much ran the roto standings essentially every couple weeks or so. I would check the league leaders for each and rank them all. Obviously red is really good. If you got red, if you were first, you got 12 points. If you were last, you got 1 point, and anywhere in between, you got those subsequent totals. You add them all up. The highest total was the higher the total, the better your offense or your team or your pitching or whatever. So obviously I just took our categories and, runs, home runs, total bases, RBIs, all of that. You can see that on the screen here. And we ranked them out. And so when you rank them out according to total offense, Felipe at the very end ended up being the best offense with 80 points. And then Ricky with 75, and then I was at 74, and then it drops off a little bit. Carlos at 58, Corey Decker at 56, and then Larry at 55, rounding out the top 6 there. Felipe, I mean, having a strong offense, leading in runs, total bases, RBIs, and being second in stolen bases. I was saying this in the chat. You were top 3 in all but one offensive category.
Strikeouts.
And that one offensive category, you had the most strikeouts in the league. So I just thought it was funny. You had the most strikeouts in the league, but you had the 3rd highest average and the highest OBP by the end of the season.
Damn right I do. I always target that OBP, always. But it's surprising that I got a lot of stolen bases because I normally don't draft for stolen bases.
Mm-hmm.
You know how I am about those players that only are stolen base specialists.
Right.
I don't trust them. I don't believe in them. They come with so many flaws that it's not even worth it. I mean, Cedric Mullins I had this year, and I felt like he kind of underwhelmed, but he did enough just to get by. I was expecting like at least a 2020 season from him this year. And instead, we ended up getting, what is it? I mean, the 30 stolen bases are there, but only 13 home runs and a 322 on base percentage, which is, I don't think that's what he did last year. I think he was much
better last year.
Yeah, I'm actually 360 and a 291 batting. So he didn't even give me a batting average because he had 260 something this year compared to 291 last year. So yeah, so that ended up being a disappointment. That's why I don't trust these guys who steal bases. But yeah, him and along with Trey Turner, which, as you remember, I was happy as a clam when you guys let me have Trey Turner in the first round.
Yep.
And then I also have Aaron Judge, and he's the reason why I pretty much lead in a lot of these categories you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Well, he chipped in 16 stolen bases. Can you believe that?
I was shocked when I saw that he had 16 stolen bases. For as big of a man as he is, he can swipe some bags. Yeah. So I was shocked. Although, and you had that strategy. I had a completely different strategy. My strategy, the way that my team was made up was completely different. I was second in runs and 3rd in total bases, but I had the least strikeouts in the league, the most stolen bases, the highest average, and the second biggest OBP. So or the second largest OBP. So the people that Felipe was trying to avoid, I grabbed. So I grabbed the Tommy Edmonds, the Miles Straws, I mean, I grabbed so many of those guys. I can't even think of them right now.
All those guys, the 2 names you just mentioned, Tommy Edmonds and Miles Straw, I was actually looking to get them, but later in the draft. And I think you valued them so much more than I did that there was no chance in hell I was going to get to those guys. Because Tommy
Edmond, I was eyeing a lot.
Yeah, so. I couldn't justify the price that he went. I'm pretty sure you got him earlier than I ever wanted him to, but we discussed that already on the in previous episodes. Go check those episodes out. But yeah, a lot of those guys I just couldn't justify. No way. So you also had Michael Harris II, who we talked on the Total Bases podcast before as someone you need to keep an eye on. And sure enough, as soon as we talk about him, he gets called up by the Braves, and everybody made a beeline to get him. And I actually had him on my team for a split second, but I had no room for him anymore after like a couple of days, so I cut him, and then I guess you picked him up right away.
I picked him up very shortly after that, and he was a mainstay in my outfield. I think he was in my outfield for like 6 or 7 straight weeks. Like I never took him out because I just knew that he was going to be the type of guy that produced, and he was on a winning, that Braves lineup. I said it last week that Michael Harris, I think, is going to be a pick to click, especially next year, because of that lineup that they have right now in Atlanta. And I think that lineup in Atlanta really set him up really well to perform well, and it worked out well for my fantasy team. So
how different would your season have gone if Jazz Chisholm was still healthy?
If Jazz Chisholm was still healthy, I don't know. I can't say that I would be the champion of the league because my downfall was pitching. I think it would have been much more difficult to for you to win because I mean we could take a look back at the scoreboard here. Let's see. Total bases, I probably would have gotten a couple more that's you. Runs, I mean, he's at the top of the lineup in that Marlins lineup. I could have probably gotten a couple more runs. I believe, does he steal bags? I think he steals a little bit.
He's 12 stolen bases and 200 plate appearances or at bats, I should say.
he would have stolen some bags. He would have gotten me a couple RBIs. I think it would have been I think it would have been tougher on the offensive side of the coin, but I don't know. Like I said, my downfall was pitching. So I don't know if the result would have been any different, but I think it would have been much more difficult. I would have had a easier time making my lineup for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So
what's his face? Angel pointing out that he was third. He's surprised that he was third in stolen bases to finish off the season.
well, then he found out he was third worst. He was reading it wrong, and he's third.
Oh, he's reading it wrong. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, he's reading it wrong. He was third worst in stolen bases. When we go to stolen bases, we can let's see, we can order that right now. It was me, then you, and then it was a tie between Carlos and Matt Nyland for third. Angel, as you can see, was down here at third to last.
Sorry, Angel. I thought we had something going for you, but I guess not. So
his team, he held strikeouts. He held his strikeouts quite a bit, and then he had a high OBP too. But what really I think helped him out, he had a little bit of a better pitching staff, especially when it came to a bullpen. So I'll move over to the pitching here. So let me order this, and all right, there we go. So in terms of pitching, we have Carlos. It works the same way we did our categories and the points and whatever. So we have Carlos by far this season has the best pitching staff. He had 83 points, and then I ended up having the second best pitching staff for the season. It didn't act like it in the playoffs, but it is what it is. I had 73, and then AJ had 68 auto draft pitching. He had all the pitchers. So, and then you were in fourth at 63, and then Corey and Melvin, the two Heathens podcast hosts, were tied, rounding out the top five at 62 points. And Angel was right there. He had 55 points in seventh place there. And he had holds. He had, kind of a smaller ERA. He was able to collect some wins and some quality starts. But I mean, Carlos, we got to take, when you look at Carlos, he had the most innings pitched, most quality starts, the most wins, second lowest ERA, the lowest whip. He was a really hard, I think that's what was a big part of his season, was his pitching staff was just really difficult to take on and defeat.
Really quick show note. Corey Richmond he's on the chat as well, saying that he's kind of laughing at the fact, I won't say laughing, but I guess mocking at the idea that he was last in every single category that was posted, I guess, in the hitting side of things. Yeah, he's the guy who did not pick a white player until the 20th round.
Yeah.
And that player was Steven Strasburg.
The kooky strategy king.
Yeah, it did not work at all.
No,
try better strategy next year.
And I mean, he had good players and they just fell to injury. Like he picked up Tatis, and Tatis has ringworm, and so he's going to be gone for a while. And it just didn't work out. That strategy didn't work out. I think it was just a weird mix, and he had a little bit of everything, but he didn't have necessarily anything that he was strong in that he could build on. And I think that was the problem there. He had a little bit of everything, but he didn't have enough of anything to win.
Yeah. Yeah, he too should consider investing in our cheat sheets next year. Really quick note as well. Corey, I actually saw Richmond. I saw him at the AEW All Out event on Sunday. He was there with me. So always good to do these Baseball Life meetups. And Baseball Life is the Facebook baseball group that we're in. It's called Baseball Life. If you're listening to audio only and you don't know what Baseball Life is, just type it up, search for us. We're right there. Baseball Life. We're about 8,000, 9,000 people strong. And we're constantly meeting people from all over the country, like Corey from New York, who came to Chicago to watch this wrestling event. Angel, the comment of the night from Angel, turns out he says, "I'm the real holds king."
So for a little bit of context, those of you who were not privy to the private chat, Larry, he liked to hold on to weird stuff. He had weird accolades, and he had weird things that he liked to hold on to. And the one thing was he was either mediocre or sucked in everything, but he had the most holds, and he thought he was going to go to the playoffs and do something special because he had the most holds. And then he ended up getting Nick Castellanos, who he tried to trade for. He tried to trade Yordan Alvarez and Bo Bichette for, Nick Castellanos. And we had to put a stop to that because that was just way too unbalanced. And, all of this stuff happened. And yeah, he kept saying, I'm the holds king. I'm the holds king. I'm the holds king. He even nicknamed himself. I think at one point he nicknamed himself holds king in the chat. And about 3 weeks left in the season, Angel took him over. And I mean, I had to really quick put in the chat, oh yeah, by the way, Larry, you're not the holds king anymore. And he was like, no, I'm still the holds king. I was like, no, bro, you're not. And he never was after that. He
came close though. He came very close.
He came close. He was second, but it went to Angel. So Angel is now the rightful holds king for now. We should do an award next year. Holds king, just
holds king. Yeah. Hold this.
So so there's that little bit of context. Good comment. That was a good comment. And we do this live every week. So if you want to come in, join Baseball Life, interact with us, we're in the comments there. I mean, we've got Melvin in there right now, Corey Richmond's in there right now, Angel's in there right now, people from the league, and we welcome anybody in the chat. You got a question, ask us. It's we love the interaction. We can go ahead and quickly move on to our overall total offense and pitching roto standings. And I'll just go over really quickly. And I'll go from the bottom. We'll go from the bottom. So Corey Richmond, unfortunately, he's already made fun of himself. He had 57 points. According to the roto standings, he did not do well. He was the worst team in the league. Matt Nyland, bless his heart, he tried. It didn't work out this year, but he made light of it in the chat. He's at 67 points. Jake was at 72. And then Larry, I'll give Larry this. He improved. He had 97 points, but he still sucked. And then you had Melvin at 103. You had Angel at 107. You had AJ at 108. Rounding out the top five, and fifth is Ricky at 110. Fourth was Corey Decker at 118. And then I see in there Corey Richmond. He says, I tried too. Yes, you did. You did try. I will give you that. And then 141 points for Carlos, 143 points for Felipe. Even though I didn't win the championship, I'm still going to take home that according to the roto standings, I was the best team in the league. I had 147 points overall. So I will take that as I will take that in a ride off into the sunset in this year with that. I will have a black eye for not winning the championship, but I can say that according to the roto standings, I was the best.
Well, that's what you get for trying to control your narrative there. What the hell was that about? Yeah, here's a narrative for you. The two podcast hosts end up going to the championship game. How's that for a narrative? Yeah. Oh, and the numbers suggest that we were the best two teams in the league.
Yep.
And Carlos was there too as well in third place. So
yep.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I tell you, man, everybody wants to play in a league with me until they actually play in a league with me. And then feelings get hurt, pettiness arises. But yeah, I'll be working on my other championship banner really soon. Don't worry about it, guys. You'll see it. You'll be seeing it regularly on this podcast for sure.
And I think a big contributor to our success here, both in a points league and in our in this league, on the offensive side anyway, was the spreadsheets that we made preseason. Both Felipe and I worked together on making this spreadsheet, this ranking of fantasy hitters. It was something, I think we had like 700 something hitters by the end of it. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a ton of work. Months of work went into that. Lots of learning more about Google Sheets and stuff like that. Excel, long nights trying to get it all done. And we were sharing it on the show. We did.
You ready?
What?
It was 359 hitters, 235 starting pitchers, and I'm counting, and it's 185 relief pitchers that we went through.
So yeah, about 700 something players.
I guess, I don't know. You're the math whiz.
Yeah, it's about 750, I think, somewhere around there. So I mean, it was a lot.
We're losers.
Big undertaking, and then after all of that hard work, we decided that we were going to share it with you guys. And some people took it up on it. People in our league took up on it. We had Angel take it up and use it as well during our draft. And you could tell who was using the spreadsheet and who wasn't because Felipe and I were drafting kind of the same people. And then
that pissed me off, by the way.
Yeah, and then Angel snuck in and stole some of the people that both Felipe and I wanted. And so, it was just really, I guess that was an unforeseen consequence of having the same spreadsheet, was we both wanted the same players.
So the three of us were sharing the spreadsheet, and I don't know what I'm going to do, but I take pride that I'm able to, you're seeing it. The pitching, the starting rotation that I went with for the championship game is basically the back end guys on the starting pitching spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Plus all the guys that we've mentioned before on the podcast throughout the season, like Brian Bello. Sean mentioned him as one of his minor league guys to keep an eye on. But Dustin May was also, where was he on my cheat sheet here? Because after I gave you the cheat sheet, we ended up kind of tweaking it. So
we both tweaked it to our personal thing. Yeah, our personal preferences. Like I had, for hitters anyway, I had Tommy Edman in terms of second baseman. I think I had him like 5th, and I think you had him like 10th.
Well, Dustin May was 159th overall on my starting pitching spreadsheet. But but there he was, just sitting there. No one's taking him. No one wants to win this league, so I guess I'll have to do it myself. So yeah, he ended up being instrumental. Again, we didn't draft every single person on that spreadsheet. It's a lot of pitchers, but a lot of those guys, they don't. Hunter Brown he's listed as probably at 160th or something. Hunter Brown is now starting for the Houston Astros because Justin Verlander went down.
Oh, Justin Verlander went down? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he went down with what the hell? Calf injury, I believe. Nick Lodolo was player number 121 on this cheat sheet. He ends up helping me win this championship in this league. So you never know. And then the other guy, Spencer Strider. Remember that we kind of touched just in passing. Hey, check out this Spencer Strider. He might turn into something, and we all agreed. And but he like superseded all of my expectations, though. For real. I did not see this coming at all. I saw, if he ever figures out how to pitch, he might be a nice little pitcher to kind of keep an eye on later on in the season. And he just took everything. And oh my God, it was so impressive what he did this year. But anyway, but that's what happened. You never know with these pitchers. That's the Spencer Turnbull, Spencer Howard. So Spencer Strider's not even on this list. That's how we were done with this. Like, all right, nice little pitcher, but he's not going to be on. He's not going to be on anybody's radar. And then he did. He ended up being on somebody's radar. But I remember that we talked about him. He was on the StatCast numbers that we did from last year, and on the projections, he had some decent numbers for a guy who was going to be who only was supposed to appear on a part-time basis. And I just remember that we did touch base on him, and we all agreed that he might turn into something. Now he might be a Cy Young candidate, or at the very least, Rookie of the Year this year.
Rookie of the Year, NL Rookie of the Year for sure. So I just really quickly wanted to touch base on the spreadsheet. So I decided, I was really curious. And when I get really curious, I end up doing a lot of late night work because, I can't sleep. So I decided that I was going to take all of the qualified hitters, separate them by position, and take their stats as of September 4th, which was the end of our season, and just rank them, right? And as you can see here, in terms of first baseman anyway, I had 23 first basemen that ended up being qualified hitters at the time. And I just wanted to compare it to our spreadsheets and see if we were sort of accurate. So let's take a look at this here. So in terms of first baseman, number 1, Paul Goldschmidt, we had him at 5th, right? And I don't think any of us could have foreseen this, possible triple crown, NL MVP front runner season. We thought he was going to be good, but he's on a whole nother level, but we still decided that he was going to be pretty good. Freddie Freeman, he was the number 2 in terms of roto. We had him number 2 on our spreadsheet. Vladimir Guerrero, he's number 3 here. We had him at number 1. Pete Alonso finished very close to where we had him. The only surprising one right now is kind of Luis Arias, but I think it's because he changed positions. And then Nathaniel Lau he was 17th. He ended up 8th. But the rest of these guys in the top 10, we had them somewhere in the top 10, and they are fairly close to where we had them ranked. Right. And then you had Christian Walker at 30. Ty France is pretty close. Reese Hoskins is pretty close. Like we did, it shows that the months of work that we did, whatever we're doing, it's paying off, and it's pretty accurate. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, especially for the hitters. I mean, it's pretty clear that hitters are a lot more predictable than the pitchers are.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty easy to do it, but we had the projections and the StatCast numbers to show that this is the way it should be. And but yeah, nobody saw Paul Goldschmidt, but we did see that Paul Goldschmidt would definitely be better than guys like Josh Bell, Jose Abreu, Max Muncy, Joey Votto, even Jared Walsh. So
Jared Walsh, you want to see where he's at?
Where?
Jared Walsh in terms of roto standings, dead last. Dead last.
He was a top 10 first baseman for me this year. And I never trusted him, but I figured, well, decent lineup with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. It seems like he has a job all to himself. Let's roll the dice with him. Put him in the top 10. He should be better than CJ Cron and Anthony Rizzo and even Nate Lowe as well. Nope. And it turns out he was worse than all those guys, apparently. So,
yep. Yeah, it kind of surprised me. But at the same time, when you have one good season and then you try and follow it up, it's tough. It's really hard. So that's why I always say I need to see more than one season. So even though he was on my Angels, I didn't have him as high as you did because of that. He had one good season. I need to see another one before I foresee him being real.
I'm sorry, which player? I missed it. Which player?
Jared Walsh.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, second baseman, again, you're seeing it here. Jose Altuve, we had third, was first. Marcus Semien, we had second, is second. Tommy Edman, I had him at 5th. Personally, I had him at 5th. Preseason rank, we had him at 10th. He ended up 3rd. You had a couple surprises here, but, Tyro Estrada, Wilmer Flores, they're both on the same team, both ranked in shortstop. The things that we're seeing here that the interesting thing that I thought here was interesting was some of the top second basemen in Roto were our lower ranked shortstops. So it was like they moved over from short to second, and they did well there in terms of fantasy production.
Yeah, and that's the name of the game, is just trying to see which of these bottom feeding shortstops are going to be able to climb up the rankings.
Yeah.
And shortstop was so deep this year that it wasn't worth risking that, because after you get to a certain level.
I mean, look at the names on shortstops right here.
Yeah.
That covered the top 10.
Yeah, I see Bobby Witt, Nico Horner ended up being a serviceable middle infielder. But at the beginning of the season, would you take a risk at a Nico Horner, even if it's late in the draft? I wouldn't.
I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, he's waiver wire. Yeah, well, Cub fans are going to Cub fans, I guess. No, he's having a terrific season. Horner is, and he's living up to some of that. He's taking advantage of his skills, which is a high contact rate. And the Cubs always believe that he had some pop in his bat. It's just, frustrating to kind of wait to see if it comes to fruition or not. But yeah, I think the big name would have been Gavin Lux, and he came with a lot of question marks into the season, especially with the way the Dodgers managed their hitters.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's not. So if it wasn't worth risking to wait around for one of these bottom feeding shortstops, those guys that were ranked outside the top 20, top 25, because there's so many good shortstops that were at the top of the list that I guess the big chance you would have taken would have been with Fernando Tatis Jr., who I have him ranked at number 10 on my list of shortstops.
Right.
And it turns out that if you drafted Tatis, you were screwed.
you lost out. I mean, we saw that with Corey Richmond. He drafted Tatis and he was screwed, because after that, when you draft somebody that high, you kind of lose out on that position afterwards, because you're like, oh, well, I got Tatis, I'm good. Right. Well, it turned out that wasn't the case. So,
right. Yep.
We're winding down to the end of the show. The other thing that I wanted to say was probably people are like, oh, well, you only have 19, 20 people on here. Of course, it's going to look, accurate because of that. I mean, catchers was the same. We had a lot of our top 10 was in the top there. There were only 6 qualified catchers. I I didn't want to change the constraints when it came to catcher. Third baseman, we had 19 third basemen, and it looks accurate as well. I mean, look at all the single digits here. They just kind of switched around. The only one that's a surprise is Brandon Drury, who wasn't even on the list. But so I wanted to pull out outfield, right? Because outfield is bigger.
Yeah. And deeper too, I think.
It's much deeper. So we have 45 qualified outfield hitters right now. And just take a look at the top. Up top, Mookie Betts, we had him at number 3. Aaron Judge, number 2, we had him at 8. Yordan Alvarez, we had him at 7. Starling Marte, we had him just outside the top 10. He ended up 4. Kyle Tucker, we had him at 6. Juan Soto was first. Juan Soto, I don't know how many people are saying Juan Soto is having a fantastic season. He's having a good season, but not a fantastic season. The roto rankings in fantasy are saying that he's having a great season. We had him ranked first. We had George Springer in the top 10. Julio Rodriguez, he was a rookie. You never know how rookies are going to go.
Oh, I just realized those are your rankings. I'm sorry to cut you off, but those are your rankings.
Those were the previous. Those were the rankings in the preseason before our tweaks. I still have the ones before we tweaked.
Oh, okay. I get it. I thought maybe that you might have tweaked those. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay,
no,
go ahead.
I tweaked them too, but I put that on a different spreadsheet.
Yeah, because in the end, I'm looking at the one that I used for this podcast league, and Marte's ranked number 18th on my list, and George Springer's ranked number 19 on this list. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but go on, continue. Sorry about that.
So, I mean, what we have here is still pretty accurate, but again, outfield is so deep, you're still going to see some sort of like Julio Rodriguez. I don't think any of us saw Julio Rodriguez being the 8th best fantasy outfielder in a category league, right?
Right.
Randy Rosarino, we had 25th. He could have very well have been top 10, right? He could have very well been top 10 in our spreadsheet. He just didn't land there. Ian Happ, I was shocked at. Adolis Garcia, he was ranked down there. I mean, but here it is again. Cedric Mullins, right? He was 13th best as an outfielder. We had him ranked 14th. Right. So, I mean, it's pretty close. It's pretty accurate. So, I feel like the spreadsheets anyway have been a success.
Yeah. And again, I find that if I use them as a suggestion that they work out well, but when I use them as Bible, as law, that's where I get screwed. Like I ended up in my cheat sheet for this league. I ended up drafting both Marcell Ozuna and Akil Baddoo because Ozuna was my 24th ranked outfielder, and Baddoo was number 27 on my list that I used for this league. And had I been a little bit more shrewd and not fallen in love with these outfielders, I could have gotten Julio Rodriguez in this league, or maybe I would have gotten Miles Straw from you, or because these are guys that are ranked lower on my list. If I would have waited on outfield a little bit longer, maybe I would have gotten I guess it just Seiza Suzuki. That's another good name there. Seiza Suzuki, I could have gotten him if I would have waited just a little bit longer, but I didn't. Go ahead.
I think that was the biggest lesson that I learned going in this season was I don't need to draft so many outfilders. In both the leagues that in all the leagues that I played this year, I drafted too many outfielders, and it ended up being a disservice to me because then I didn't have enough infielders and I needed more infielders. And there was a good fantasy playing outfielder were a dime a dozen because there's just so many outfielders. Yeah. So I think next year is going to be more of a focus on pitching and infield. And, I will clamor at the chance to get an Aaron Judge or a Mike Trout or somebody like that. But when it comes to those not superstar name outfielders, I can wait on them because I have other, their outfielders are much deeper. Yeah.
And then there's plenty of infielders who do qualify at outfield as well. That should help you out as well.
Yeah.
But you're right. There is a lot of guys out there. I'm just kind of looking up and down the list. I know Ian Happ was on my second tier of outfielders. Ian Happ would have been ranked number. I guess he was at top 50. He's just on the 50th best outfielder on my list.
Yeah.
And he ended up going way up the rankings because he did have ended up having a really good season here. Max
Angel comment says he's going to draft closers. That's his lesson.
Yeah, only I can pull that off. I mean, not everybody can. Just be careful doing that because you can get burned. I mean, I had to because everybody kept picking starting pitchers. So I'm like, all right, well then I'll just pick Josh Hader and Emmanuel Clase then, and then ended up working. I also got Camilo Doval and Paul Sewald, but Sewald got off to a really bad start in Seattle this year. And
he ended up righting the ship. He ended up becoming one of the better relievers this year.
Yeah, eventually. And then Camilo Doval, I traded him to you for Logan Gilbert. So
Gilbert and Nick Castellanos. You ended up giving me Brendan Donovan and Camilo Doval.
Yeah, and both those guys were on your bench. So no. Donovan was starting for you, but he batted like $1.43 or something.
Yeah, and that last week it didn't work out well. And then Camilo Doval, when I got him, was doing well, and then he's got rocked second half of the season. So that ended up not being good for me either. But I didn't have anybody else for saves. I had Scott Barlow, but Scott Barlow wasn't doing very well. So that was after a while, I was like, screw it. I'm just going to put Christian Javier in the relief pitching spot and just punt saves because I don't have anybody for saves. So I needed to get other pitching categories. It ended up working for me all the way up to the end.
I'm just trying to look at some names here that were not drafted, unless I didn't mark all of these pitchers down. Here's a couple of guys who didn't get drafted in this league. Tony Gonsolin and George Kirby.
Yeah.
Wow. And Brady Singer too was not drafted in this league either.
They ended up getting picked up there pretty shortly after.
Oh, absolutely. You have to. But that's what I'm talking about. Even when there's what I'm trying to say here. Yeah, even when you think that all the good pitchers were drafted, there was like a lot of good pitchers that were just sitting on waiver wires waiting to be picked up, just because of various reasons that they were not selected by any of these teams. I'm trying to see if anybody. Taiwan Walker, it's another guy who didn't get drafted in this league. And let's give you one more name, just to Miles Mikolas. I mean, I had him for a week or two, and then I got tired of his act, and I dropped him, and then you picked him up right away.
I picked him up. I saw one start, and I was like, I gotta pick this guy up, and he ended up being a horse for my team, just a horse. I mean, he was pitching 6, 7 innings a start. He was, not allowing base runners. He wasn't a big strikeout guy, but I didn't need strikeouts. I needed whip. So that's what I got him for, was whip. And he helped me, he helped me get better in whip by the end of the year. Yeah.
And that's the reason I just lost patience with him, because I know I've had Mikolas before, and I know what kind of pitcher he is. He's not going to get you the strikeouts, and he's mostly a pitch to contact pitcher. And I have a small leash on those guys because I'm very impatient with those guys, and I don't want to deal with not having the strikeouts and constantly having to depend on guys who are trying to force hitters to hit for weak contact. And hey, when it works wonderfully, like it did with Mikolas this year. But I've seen what happens when it doesn't work for him at all, and it's not a pretty sight either. So, but good for you. You took advantage of it. Still wasn't enough for you to win this championship. Reed Detmers is another guy that's showing up here. I know that he was kind of a late bloomer this season, but he was another guy who didn't get drafted in this league. And one more big name, just because Dustin May already mentioned, but he was hurt to start the season too. Yeah, he doesn't count because now we're getting Juan Duran wasn't drafted. Yeah, I had him listed as a starting pitcher, but ultimately he would become a relief pitcher. But he wasn't drafted in this league, and if you were feeling adventurous, he was there for the taking. If you wanted to really look deep into some of the names here on the spreadsheet, and of course, how can you not talk about the 2022 season without talking about 2 Cy Young Award candidates, according to everybody I know and talk to, and that is Jordan Lyles and Kyle Bradish, because the Orioles are a haven for starting pitchers, as you know, Austin. As you know.
I had Dean Kramer for a couple weeks.
Yeah, how'd that work out?
Well, it was when he was on a roll, and it just matchups didn't work out, and I dropped him at the right time.
Check this out. 100 ranked beyond 181st on the starting pitchers list. Guys like Ross Stripling, Okay. Martin Perez.
All-star.
Kyle Wright.
I mean, that's just the name of the game when it comes to pitching. Pitching is just so volatile. Like you just never, you may be good Cy Young candidate one season, and then you get rocked the next season. I mean, look at Patrick Corbin. Patrick Corbin for a while, he was not the best, but he was up there. He was in a higher tier, and now Patrick Corbin, you every fifth day, you're like, oh, the Nationals are going to lose because Patrick Corbin's on the mound. Like that's an easy 4 or 5 runs in 4 innings, So pitching is just so volatile. You don't know who's going to continue to succeed and who's not.
And I got 2 more names for you, then we can finish up here. Beyond the 211th ranked starting pitcher on this list, a big name that you would recognize is Justin Steele, who's he's out for the year now because of a back injury. I thought it was, but mainly because the Cubs are just not good. They got nothing to play for. So that's one guy. The other guy, my favorite pitcher right now, Jose Suarez for the Angels, ranked number 222nd on this list.
Yeah, the Angels will every once in a while. Angels pitchers will go on a tear, but their starting pitching actually has not been bad this year. It hasn't been terrible. It's been their bullpen that's been flat out awful. Yeah. You had Raisel Iglesias, who was getting rocked for a long time. Aaron Loop was supposed to come in and be good. He wasn't great. Ryan Tepera had a decent season. You're getting a good season from his name. I can't think of his name right now. Jimmy Haggart, who is now their closer. Wow. And then there was I just saw another one on the Fangraphs leaderboards. I think it was Jaime Barria or something like that. But Jimmy Haggart was the one that jumped out at me. I was like, what? But other than that, there's just nothing in the bullpen. It's all just pillows.
Final question for you. All right. So we talked about Paul Goldschmidt. I needed to ask you this beforehand, but Paul Goldschmidt, top 5 first baseman coming into the season, probably will be your NL MVP in 2022. So let's play that game now. Paul Goldschmidt, is he better than Pete Alonso for next year? Are you ranking him ahead of Pete Alonso next year?
I probably won't because Pete Alonso's younger.
Yeah, okay. Pete Alonso's my 4th best first baseman. Okay, Pete Alonso or Matt Olson?
I think I'm going to go with Alonso.
All right, so that means Goldschmidt or Olson?
That one's tough because Olson I thought was going to have a good year this year.
Yeah. Left-handed bats, man. Left-handed bats. I keep warning you guys about it.
I think I would edge Goldschmidt. He's not going to have another Triple Crown season, but I think he has one more good season left in him.
All right, Paul Goldschmidt or Freddie Freeman?
Freeman.
Oh, and what about Pete Alonso versus Freddie Freeman?
Freeman.
Freddie Freeman versus Vladimir Guerrero for the top spot there.
Freeman.
You're gonna put Freddie Freeman, who's older, ahead of Vladimir Guerrero?
I may.
All right, Pete Alonso or Vladimir Guerrero then?
I think Vladdy has a not a bounce back season because he's had a good season this year, but
season, yeah.
I'm thinking Vladdy has a better season than this year. I'll go Guerrero.
All right, and then I guess Paul Goldschmidt or Vladdy Guerrero for the number 2 spot.
Guerrero.
Damn. All right. So it's gonna be interesting when we do these again next winter.
Yeah, because that ranking may totally change when we get to the spreadsheet. So
the season-ending injuries or free agency moves happen, and lots of things can change. But that's what we have it so far, or at least that's how Austin has it. He has Freddie Freeman, Guerrero, and I guess Alonso at number 3. Then
Alonso, then Goldschmidt, then
Olson. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. All right.
Anyway, all right. So I think that pretty much concludes this podcast. So thank you, Felipe, for coming on. I get a little lonely sometimes, so I appreciate you coming on. You have any final parting words?
We should be back on Sunday morning. Sunday morning. I know we were going to do a prospect show on Sunday. before Sean informed me that he wasn't going to be here for Labor Day weekend. But I haven't heard from the guy, but hopefully we'll be back on Sunday. A lot of these prospects were already called up, but I think we're going to talk a little bit about them, just because we had them on our radar back in late August, right before the turn of the month, right before the September call-ups were going to happen.
Right.
So I do want to at least talk about those guys who were on our list and get some in-depth analysis on those AAA and AA players that we were going to talk about last week, but we couldn't get a chance to do so. So hopefully we get that on their way. Happy NFL season kickoff to everybody. What's the score now, Austin? Do you have it there?
I don't have the score. I have no idea. I've been trying to watch the chat.
I like to, you know how I am, man. I like to timestamp things, what happened on this day. So the Buffalo Bills are up 17-10 on the Rams in the third quarter.
Oh, it's closer. All right.
Yeah, it's getting closer.
Anyway, all right. So I think that concludes this episode of the podcast. Thank you for listening to the Total Bases podcast. You can find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher. You can find us on YouTube, or you can find us live on Facebook at the Baseball Life Facebook group. Go ahead and I'm live on Thursdays, and Felipe and Sean are live on Sunday mornings. Thank you for tuning in. Go ahead and join the Baseball Life League and interact with us live. It's so much fun to interact. And until next time, thanks again and have a good one, everybody.